Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special. It is a special review. I just tweeted this out, but this is probably the biggest one, man. I'm looking dark if you look at that camera. This is the biggest one that I've definitely done solo. I'm trying to think what is the biggest solo review I've ever done before, but I'm Trash Snail. As usual, though, or usually there's other Geek First members around, but you can go and listen to a bunch of newscasts, see posts. People are getting married, trips, babies, stuff like that. So Suicide Squad, I knew was coming up, and tomorrow is really big in the deep of Taylor's wedding stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna see it Thursday, get it out there, and a big thank you to HBO Max because I got to see this nice and early. Also, my theater, kind of fun three things to get here before we start the review, but my theater, I originally planned to see it theatrical, and I think they had an outbreak because they just refunded my ticket randomly. Like there was a sign in the world because it was like, okay, this is dropping earlier. It's best like I could watch it that way. I can watch it the first time with my fiance, considering going that route. Even though I love the theaters, I'm a theaters guy. Anytime I can make the choice between home and theaters, I'm taking theaters. But I was like, okay, this might just work better for life because usually I'd say, oh, I can wait till 7, but busy schedule right now, best man responsibility, stuff like that. So, anyways, that happens. And then I just get my ticket randomly refunded. And I had to go download a thing just to see what movie it was for. I was like, oh, really? This is for um Suicide Squad. All right. And then I got an email being like, you'll get more details soon, but we're closed for the next few days. So who knows what happened there? I won't name drop it. But then the other theater was a little ways away. It's like, okay, all the signs in the world were just pointing me to like, you're gonna watch on HBO Max. And a good thing for VPNs and HBO Max, I got to watch Suicide Squad. So as always, if you want to follow everything that we do, or where you want to find everything we do, head down to the description below. And we have, boy, just a bevy of content, a bevy of things going on. Check out our Patreon. Most importantly, that helps support us. That helps grows this podcast network, the other podcast network as well. You get ad-free, exclusive, early episodes. So this episode right now, there will be ads, but you could get it ad-free over there. Bunch of exclusive stuff there, early stuff there. Yeah, and as we've said before, if you like what we do and you want us to produce more content, you can go read the about section, see how that's all happening in the fall/next year. As far as the more support we get on Patreon, the more podcasts that everyone gets. So it's kind of a good thing all around, right? So you can do that. If you can't afford to do anything like that, we completely get it, especially now in COVID times. Lots of people still don't work. It's crazy, crazy times. But if you want to support us still, head over to YouTube, subscribe there, any podcatcher subscribe, but most importantly, head over to Apple Podcasts if you have an iPhone or whatnot, and leave us a 5-star written review. That really helps in the Apple charts. Our majority of listeners are Apple, and that's just where we get lots of the sourcing from. So that's where that would help us out greatly. Check out the past few weeks. Did a bunch of newscasts. I reviewed The Green Knight, which is absolutely fantastic. We just dropped our Suicide Squad commentary track from a few years back, so tons of stuff on the main feed. Go check that out there. There's gonna be newscasts next week. What if starts? So if you're listening to us for the first time, you can go back. I've with Kirklin or Taylor reviewed Loki, WandaVision, Falcon, and what if the first 2 weeks of the movie alone, and that's when Kirklin will come back. But I'm looking very forward to that. And stay tuned to the schedule because I might do some newscasts around there too. So lots of good stuff popping off. A big thank you to everybody that has supported us. Past 5 months have been our biggest as far as keeps growing. And already this month is off to a great start. So we really appreciate it. Check out all the podcast feeds because if you like this review and this is your first time, because lots of these big reviews, majority of times when we get new listeners, people like, I go, where did you hear, from us, or how did you get to this first time? Was a review. So if you like this, but as you can see, our main feed gets everything: newscasts, specials, reviews, TV show reviews, everything, right? Updates. If you want, hey, I want to know, did they review this? Did they review this earlier this year? And it might be way down the feed. Just head over to GeekVerse Reviews and you have everything there. Or GeekVerse News has every single newscast, or Retrospectives, which are, a special that we do. So those feeds, you can get them all here, and we greatly appreciate if you listen to here. But if not, head over those solo feeds because it's just an easy way to catch up on Geekverse. And if before you ask, hey, have you ever reviewed this? Look there because we put classic stuff back in there. All good things happening. So lots of good stuff happening. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook for updates and just to support us. That means the world to us. Check out our podcast network, Geek Ultimate Alliance. What is it now? 6 days a week now? 6 days a week. 8 shows, some bi-weekly, covering Marvel, Star Wars, DC, comic books, animation, Power Rangers, you name it. We got something for it. Other than a cooking show, we don't have a cooking show. So one day we'll have a cooking show and one day we'll have a wrestling show. So James Gunn, The Suicide Squad. Funny enough, a movie that has never been delayed. All these movies have been delayed, and he always said, like, before COVID, I've locked it, done the post production, and that's the date, and it's staying that way. And it did. So let me take a quick little drink of water here before we get really into it, because that's the art of solo podcasting. You got to find the right pause, whatnot, because every other time you really don't appreciate when you're podcasting with others and you go, oh man, there's just like water all around because people are talking. So you can take a break now and you got to sneak them in. So excuse me, because this will be a longer review. I might tell you, hey, I'm taking a quick water break here. I'll be gone for 5 seconds. And there you go. So James Gunn Suicide Squad. It's out. I've seen it. And it's interesting how we got here in a multitude of ways, right? I think that it was 5 years ago. It said today, the time of this recording. I guess. Oh man, people are never gonna know that ever even happened. So yeah, good times. Anyway, so how we got here, it's just so funny to think about where we've been the past 2 years. 2016, that movie comes out, David Ayer Suicide Squad, but not really David Ayer Suicide Squad. You can look at that. There's a whole release the Ayer cut behind that and stuff like that. And if you're wondering, uh, I was a fan of his previous work. That movie was not that, but I've also seen some movies after that that weren't that good of his. But at the same time, I go, if he wants his cut, put it out there. There's no harms to a director's cut or his cut, whatever you want to call it, right? But I feel like at least a little vindicated with that movie, especially because I feel like there's such a tide turn because that was in the heat of the Marvel and DC war, right? Like the fake war. And this is just to the idiots and assholes out here. But like so many people just swear by that movie and said this. And if you still like the movie, that's great. But just like how much better it is in Marvel and it's a director's vision and blah, blah, blah. And DC lets Marvel or lets people do things that Marvel doesn't. And it's just so funny now you have the actual director say, yeah, it's not my cut, and multiple people that just shit on that movie. But that was one of our most famous reviews because I hated the Suicide Squad of 2016. I think that is a top 10 worst comic book movie. And it shows with, yeah, studios get involved with almost every movie, but that's to like the nth degree. They have a trailer company cutting it. Just terrible, right? So I did not like that one. And it's just so funny. So obviously David Ayer's not drinking this. And then it's so crazy that we've been doing this now for 60 years and how much stuff we've covered, because the reason this review is happening, the reason this movie is happening is because a few old tweets from James Gunn came up, and that led to him being fired from Marvel kind of very quickly and abruptly. You can go back. We took a whole bunch of casts. That was a huge conversation, obviously, back then. He gets brought for Suicide Squad. He's getting brought back for Guardians. And it's just crazy that there was so much talk about all the firing. Should they have done it? Should they not have done it? Where is he going to go? He's going to DC. What's he going to do? Oh, he's doing a Suicide Squad. Okay. And that was, well, I think, what, 2018-ish, I think. So now coming on 3 years later now, it's just crazy. Time has flown by. So it's just strange how we got at this point between the 2016 Ayer cut, between James Gunn's history, between my theater, but we're here. And if people haven't listened before, I said that I was always knew, it sounds weird, but I always knew I was going to like this movie, but I just was not excited for this movie. I did really want James Gunn to do something different. Now, there is differences with this movie. We'll talk about it. And even just the approach as far as it's DC, it's different characters, it's radar, yada, 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 right? Sure, but still at the end of the day, it was a comic book film with a group of misfits, right? Very, very James Gunnish. So it was like, okay, don't know if I really need to see him do that, but all right, let's see what he got. And then trailers happen. I've said this for a while, where I think trailers for James Gunn movies aren't the greatest because they really emphasize on the high action or the jokes and stuff like that. Like if you watch, I'll say this in a non-spoilers way. If you watch both trailers, the amount of jokes that are in that trailer, the percentage is not the same as the movie. There's long stretches without no jokes or anything like that. It feels like it might even be less quippy than some of his Guardians movies. So that's where I always feel the trailers. They did that for Guardians 2. They did that for this, where it's just joke, 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 and you're okay. Like I'm fine with humor, but there's just you got to have a balance to it, right? And the trailers always worried me as far as okay, if it was like this, I don't know if I'd be a fan of it. But like I said before, newscast trailers, I feel for James Gunn movies aren't usually the greatest. So we get here, and luckily, I guess luckily, but not surprisingly, I can report that I did really, really like this movie. It's interesting because I had quite the experience with it as far as I, which is a good thing with the movie. I'm very much like Kirklin, where this could be right, this could be wrong. I don't really care. It's our podcast. It's what we do. But I always like the first time I do watch a movie, it is enjoyment. But I do always have the back of my mind of like, what am I going to score? And some people believe in root score, some people don't. I don't care about believe or do not, but I, as far as wanting to score it, I like to have him there so I can tell someone a gauge of interest. Like, oh, it was a solid, oh, it was a 5, it was a solid 7, oh, it was a 10. Like, it's an easy way to put my, if you can't check out the review. And some people say, oh, that's why you shouldn't score it. But at the end of the day, that's what I do. So luckily, throughout this film, the score just kept rising and rising and rising, which is a good thing. But the first, I won't say half, but a little over the first act, I just wasn't, not that I wasn't into it. It is this funny thing of like you get the hype, right? Because this whole week has been great reviews and one of the best DC movies and wild and bonkers and you won't believe this. It's funny, and I don't know if it's because I feel like some of these people, and I don't want to assume, but I feel like some of them haven't seen Super or Slither, and it just feels like this is similar. Like some of the shock value stuff that he does in something like Super has similar aspects to this. This is to a big budget, massive level, but it wasn't. This movie wasn't that shocking to me in the sense of there's some really great gags and some really clever ideas and some really weird ideas. I love that, but I think the hype, like the hyperbole of how crazy it is, did definitely throughout the whole time kind of get me on the back foot of going, no, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's, here's the best comparison. I don't think it's any more out there than Deadpool. I think there's probably ways that Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2 could be still like, holy shit, they did that in a movie. I still think it's, if it is the Deadpool level, it's at the level. It's not above it, in my opinion. I don't think there was anything where I was like, oh, I shouldn't be watching this. Oh, this is really pushing the edge. I think it's just that it's pushing the edge for a DC Marvel comic book film, right? Because other than Deadpool, I'd say Logan and Watchmen, those are other ones that really pushed it forward. As far as, yeah, there's been other radar ones, but as far as you got lots of sex in there, you got big blue dicks hanging around, you got brutal death, stuff like that. So there's not been that many. So I do get it. I guess it's just for me, I like those films a lot and rewatch them. So it's a thing where, okay, this is not another day at the office, but this wasn't like, oh my God, this was completely bonkers. I think there's a few bonkers things in there, but the best thing I can say about this movie is pacing is pretty good, but it's all about the characters, right? Everyone is cast really well. I have to start with, my main man because we can actually see him. He's not my main man because I spent years hating him, but John Cena, this is, and you guys know me as far as how I feel about John Cena. I feel he is better in comedic roles and he needs to stay away from drama or the very serious stuff. Yeah, he was an F9, but that's a very like cheesy, serious, right? And by the way, if you don't know, I'm going to give some non-spoiler thoughts for people that haven't seen the movie, and then I'll do a break, and then I'll tell you I'm getting into spoilers. So John Cena is very, maybe I'll save some of this for spoilers, but it's his best dramatic performance because I want to use some examples. So I'll say that casting is good all rounds. There's some great standouts, and it's tough because at first, like I said, first little over the act, I thought this movie was kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none, and that's just about the characters because I still would put this below Birds of Prey for me. I would still put this uh below even Justice League that happened this year. I'd put it below that. I don't know about Wonder Woman's very tough, but I think I would put it the first Wonder Woman below that because I'm somebody that I do like the more character focused one, and there's a lot of characters in here. If you go this versus a Guardian, because people are going to do it, right? And it's, in my opinion, I don't care. It's fine to compare. It's the other director's work that's very similar. That's dealing with what, 4 or 5 characters in the first one, then they expand to like 6 or 7. But then by time you had already met those first 4, so you don't really have to explain it. This, you get a lot of characters. So I think when I say that everyone gets their moment, they do, but no one gets like an in-depth moment. I feel like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is great in this movie, but it's nowhere near what I'd put Birds of Prey, because Birds of Prey was her film and it really felt like it was in control. And every character has like a little development or character moment. Don't think it's to a massive extent, and I don't think it's the level of the Guardians movies. I love both those Guardians movies. If you've followed me for a while, you know how much I enjoy them. They're both like 10 on the enjoyment scale. Yeah, even 2. I love 2. I might be the biggest fan of 2. But the characters are very good. It's very funny. It's tons of fun. There is like some shocking stuff that goes on. Don't get me wrong. I just don't mean in the sense of, I don't think it was the same way when you saw the first Deadpool and you went, holy shit. I think there is some holy shit moments, but to me, the first Deadpool is that whole movie. Lots of this is like, okay, I've seen this movie done in other ways, whether it's in comic movies or in action movies, right? But I think Gunn has a good pace of it. I like a few things he does with the editing of this movie, which I'll talk about in spoilers. Really well done. He has, and this is just, I don't even know, I want to say, I won't spoil this. He had some very fun transitions. That's what I will say, as far as very creative, very clever, really enjoy it. And it does feel, and I will give it, and this always gives like a stamp of approval, it has that kind of comic book on screen thing. Now, I always say the best of that is Endgame, where it's like all this crazy stuff is happening. It feels like a comic book literally on the page. This has moments of that where it's more the craziness and the loopiness, and there's definitely some visuals where he slows down to make it look like a great comic book panel, and that's fantastic. I think as far as the standouts, the cast goes, I really liked everybody for the most part. I'm not going to say specifically who, because I don't want to spoil who lives or who dies. Also, I said something about John Cena, but as you've seen from the marketing, he's in a lot. I'll just say Margot Robbie is still fantastic in this role. Anytime, I'm not worried, but I'm just like, okay, this is her third time. Is it just going to be, and she's a side character, is it just going to be like, she's just kind of there the same way? I don't think that would happen with Margot Robbie, but look at Johnny Depp and Jack Sparrow. He got nominated for Academy Award for that first movie. Then it became a joke of itself, right? That does not happen here. She's still fantastic. I could still argue that she's the greatest combo casting of all time. I would still argue Heath Ledger, but she just gets that roll down so well. The rest of the cast, like Ratcatcher, really like Polka Dot Man, Weasel, TDA, like there is some really fun standouts in here. But that's the thing where I enjoyed most of the characters. The plot is very thin, but that's not a bad thing. That was one of my complaints in the first Suicide Squad, that it was another, there's some huge stakes, and as you've seen, Star Wars in this movie, so there's some like big consequences, but it's not another portal in the sky. If we don't do this, everything's going to it's tough. I'll explain later. There is some very big world consequences, but it still feels small, and the movie overall feels smaller, which I like. It doesn't feel so grandiose. It feels very base with, we got these teams of Suicide Squad, how do they get together? It's very, and it's funny because I compared Pulp Fiction. I compared Guardians of the Galaxy 2 to Pulp Fiction. Now I know on paper people might be like, this fucking guy can never listen to his review. I never meant quality or the level of the film, even though Pulp Fiction is my favorite movie. I meant in the way where that is a movie, Pulp Fiction, that very clever, very smart, but at its core, I feel like it's about dialogue and the characters, and that's where Guardians of the Galaxy 2 didn't have much of the plot and story, but it had these, to me, great character, like comic book development and dialogue, stuff like that. This, I feel like, is his kind of Reservoir Dogs in a way, and I think he nails the dynamic better than, and it's tough because we always say, oh, there's the air cut, but still, if I'm just comparing to what the theatrical is of the 2016 one, if this would have been the first one, I think this would have been even a bigger hit. Now, you don't have Joker and his radar, so it would have hurt the box office, but it just flows really well. It's just a good time. At no point was it lower than a 7. And if you guys know, a 7 for me is, I'm going to watch this movie again. I kept climbing. What's my final score? You'll have to wait and see. A few cons that I have as far as anything non-spoilers. The score, music soundtrack was good, but it wasn't a banger. There's some songs that were banger choices, so I really like that. But the score, there was a couple tracks near the end which I really liked, but there was like a generic kind of guitar, like I just, it just felt cheap, unfortunately. And I don't mean to sound offensive, but just because recently we've been getting so many good scores, whether it's on Disney Plus, whether it's the Justice League score, whether it's Green Knight, Fear Street, as far as the soundtrack. For a James Gunn experience, I thought the soundtrack was good, but didn't blow me away. And the score was, in my opinion, there, other than a few tracks. CGI, it's not Jungle Cruise bad. I'll say that, but the CGI, it's good for the most part. There's just some things in the movie that don't look in like they exist in the world. And there's one scene in particular. No, I'm not talking about that scene. That's kind of like a dream sequence. There's other scenes in particular, like Polka Dot Man. That's just not a spoiler. He uses polka dots as a weapon, right? Anytime he uses them, they just look like an effect. Now I know some, and this is a nitpick. It's not a huge thing, but someone's gonna be like, "Well, how the fuck do you make polka dots look weird, real?" I don't know. That's not my job. But anytime he would do it, it just looked like it stood out so much. But like I said, I understand that there's some things with Starro where I knew they actually wore physical stars on their faces, but there's sometimes where the effects, again, they didn't look like they were. It's more the touch up or the visual editing, I guess, around it that they look kind of, they take me out because I go, oh, this feels like you clearly see the actor and then you see what the three-dimensional CG models on them or around them, right? So, or what they're trying to run past. So, a few cons there. But overall, just a great time at the movie theaters. If you see it there, a great time at home. I think you enjoy it. If you like James Gunn's work, I like the only people I wouldn't recommend this to really is if you don't like comic book movies and if you really don't like violent stuff and everything like that, or if you don't like James Gunn's previous work. If you don't like that, then clearly he has a lot of his DNA all over it. So don't check it out. But there's not any. But I would tell everybody to go see this. Do I think it's in a top 25 comic book films? Probably not. I don't think it's there. I think there is like a little overpraise for it, but people just love James Gunn's work, right? And this is a movie that once I finished it, I'd watch another one, which luckily, I kind of went into this kind of ho hum. Other than today, I got really excited. I was like, okay, I know I like it. Liked it more, liked it kind of on bar what I was expecting, but also when it was over, it's like, oh, I would watch it again. And I would watch it again in the near future. Not like, oh, I'll get to it one day. I was like, you know what? In the next 31 days, while it's on HBO Max or something like that, I'll put it on again. I'll probably watch it a few more times because I had a great time. There's some fun little Easter eggs in there. Some really good one-liners and some really good, like, there's a few times in here, and James Gunn does this a lot to me as far as especially the Guardians films, just belly laughs. And there is a few moments where the joke's either very cleverly executed or it is something just so weird. You're like, man, I love that this is on my screen right now. And there's one joke in particular that if you've seen the movie, I won't say what character, but it's a recurring joke about they see something. And oh man, did that kill me. But now we're pretty much getting closer to spoilers. So really enjoyed my time with it. I think right now I would definitely have it in my top 10 for movies of this year. It would be below Justice League, definitely above Black Widow. Like Black Widow to me was just like, okay, that was fine. Was such a good time. And like I said, I would rather have that result where the movie I thought was, okay, this is a fun, kind of good adventure. Some jokes are hitting, some are missing. I'm enjoying my time too. Oh, I'm really liking to, like, okay, I don't know if I'm ever loving it continually, but I'm loving moments. And there is probably near the end movie, I think there's probably about 15, 20 minutes in the third act that I absolutely love and just thought was really well done. And that was kind of the most shocking parts. And that's what, like, I'll say that for spoilers because I have more to talk about on the shock value and stuff and everything like that. So that's all my thoughts. So if you've not seen the movie, I'm about to take a drink of water. I'm going to throw to an ad break and then we're going to get into spoilers. So if you've not seen the movie, tune out, come back, watch it. This review will be waiting for you. If you don't care, then go ahead. And if you've seen it, now it's time to talk about some Suicide Squad goodness. So I'll be right back after this ad break. And I'm back. So yeah, let's start doing the cast because I was going to do that in non-spoilers, but I was like, no, I didn't want to do the non-spoilers version of what I liked about the cast and then redo in spoilers and talk about them again and again and again when I could have just combined it into one. So again, last chance. Here's your spoilers. Let's start with the deaths and the shocks and everything like that. I think that's one thing that didn't take the movie down for me too much, but definitely a little as far as we've heard so much James Gunn, and that's fine. James Gunn say they gave me creative control. I could kill anybody. I could do whatever I want. Yada, yada, yada. And I think this is a combination of the marketing, real world plans, and just common sense. There was, other than one death in here, nothing that shocked me. Nothing that, I know the tagline was "Don't get attached," but it didn't feel like wow, this, like everything. There's a few from the trailer where it's like Polka Dot Man when he does the "I'm a hero." They talked about this on DC Alliance. I think we talked about this on at GeekVerse. If not, so we talked about it at some point. The second they show that, they go, "Oh, that is just like a clear setup for he's gonna die right away." And guess what? He dies right away. Like the final lineup was pretty much exactly who I predicted, which is great because I loved all those characters. And that's where I think I sound more negative in non-spoilers as far as none of them get like a huge development. And I still stand by that. I think it's all minor stuff, but they get really fun moments, and I'm invested in all of them in the pack where I'd want to see them again. Where the first Suicide Squad, for whatever reason, other than Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn, and that's because she gave a great performance. And I'll say Deadshot, I didn't care about the rest of these people. I didn't need to see him again. And that's why I feel like there's a reason that they're all not in this movie or dead, because James Gunn wanted to create his own world. So at one point when Harley was running with King Shark, Ratcatcher 2, Bloodsport, and Polka Dot Man, I was like, yeah, she's the only one. She's the only OG left. And I always kind of thought that was going to happen, that they'll either be not there or killed off. And that's exactly what happened. Other than Amanda Waller, but I don't count her. She's like the captain, and she's the Academy Award winner, one of the best actresses, arguably the best. You're not going to kill her off, but her role's pretty minor, right? So all these things about like there's going to be shocks, like they let me do anything. That to me was a little hyperbolic. It didn't feel like that. And that's where I guess there's some people that like, even the first scene where you had the violence of a guy, I can't remember, Boomerang throws a boomerang and like cuts the guy's head off and it slides. But that very first scene, it was tons of fun as far as you got TDK. He detaches his arms, and when he finally gets to the soldiers and when he just like slap them, punch them, and Harley's just looking at I think it's what's his name? Was it Javelin? Or she was either looking at Javelin or she's looking at Rick Flag, just like, what the fuck? Like, this is making no difference. This isn't helping at all. And when his arms are getting shot and he's on the ground moving around, but he has no arms, man. And that James Gunn is just great at little moments like that in all his movies he does. But this one specifically, he does it again multiple times. But the deaths, and that's where at the beginning I was like, all these deaths we literally all predicted. I was very sad. I thought he might die, but I was very sad the little amount of screen time for Weasel, especially because James Gunn was talking how much he liked Weasel. Man, what a bummer. I loved I loved his design. I loved everything they did with him. And the fact he couldn't swim, that was a fun joke. And they brought him to the beach. I do love that one of the end credit scenes is he is alive. So thank goodness. Hopefully he's in a sequel or something else. But I was, man, that's the only death that really hurt me, because I thought it might happen, but at least a little later. But I digress. We R.I.P. Weasel for the movie, but he's back, so you never know. But the deaths, right? All like, was there any deaths in the beginning you didn't see coming? I think they all made sense. I think I liked the twist of, oh, the two teams and they jump over, and that's because I thought, okay, they're gonna send this team, they're all gonna die, and then they're gonna send a second team. Here we go. No, it was like striking at the same time, and the first team just unfortunately got the real shit end of the stick of being on the island with like all the big soldier dudes and everything like that. So that happens. But while I was watching it, when I'm coming down to, okay, this isn't really that shocking. And throughout the whole movie, other than Rick Flag, when he dies and he gets that Mortal Kombat kill where Peacemaker like stabs him through the heart, which we'll talk about, I was like, oh shit. And I was like, oh no, everybody else made complete sense. There wasn't a shock. You knew Harley was not going to get killed off because she's a cash cow. I'm sorry. You knew John Cena wasn't going to kill off because he had a show. I know they tried to play coy, like it might be a prequel. You don't know what happens in the timeline. Yeah, fuck off. It's and maybe the show is a prequel, but I feel like it's go back and forth. It's like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to kill Idris Elba because he's too popular. You're not going to kill King Shark because like he's a fun character you could easily market and have a fine enough time bringing the sequel because he's CGI. And then all the other characters, like I said, whether it's trailers or just, okay, this would make sense as far as them going away. So nothing crazy happened other than Rick Flag, I'd say, was the one that I thought still could make it as that constant. And it sucks because I really like Joel Kinnaman, but it sucks, but the moment was worth it. It wasn't like a death at the beginning where, okay, we're just doing this for fun shock value. So the two things why at the beginning maybe I wasn't loving as much as, one, none of that was shocking, in my opinion. It was fun to watch, but none of it was shocking. But then two, it was, like I said, kind of what we had just done with X-Force, right? And I know Suicide Squad is another comic, stuff like that, but I'm just saying as far as a shock, if we had never seen that X-Force scene or something like that in comic books, or if the other Suicide Squad members would have been more in the marketing or promotion, then it would have been like the Drew Barrymore and Scream, like, wow, all these characters are dying. Going in, you know they're gonna die, and they die in outlandish ways, but nothing that I don't think we haven't seen before in comic movies or any movies, right? So I was just kind of sitting there first half, like, okay, this is James Gunn version of this type of movie. Also, we're gonna get his sensibilities as far as directing, as far as humor, stuff like that. So it will be different, and I'll enjoy it. But it's kind of I've seen this before. Again, what he does best, and I think that's why I love the Guardians films, is when it gets emotional. That's what the third act really does well. Like that moment with Ratcatcher, and I know I'm going all over, but that's what we do here at GeekVerse. Even when I'm alone, that's what we do here at GeekVerse. The moment of she talked about her dad earlier in the movie, and then they kind of reflect on, and it's Taika, but that was kind of came out that it was Taika. Everyone kind of figured that out about, the line is like, oh, like, why do you like rats? And they're just like, well, rats are the most, people are disgusted by them, like they're lowest on the food chain, and if they have a purpose, we must have one. And again, some of the stuff hits differently because I'm a father of two daughters, so but that actress, I don't think I've seen her anything else. She was great as Ratcatcher. Really enjoyed her. She and King Shark were the heart of this film. They did a phenomenal job. And again, that's where, yeah, they didn't get the same way as like Harley Quinn or Birds of Prey or Deadpool in all his movie or even the Guardians. I don't think any of the characters got that level of development as far as I use those other ones as hijinks movies or group movies. Even I'd say like this is much more comparable to Avengers 2012, where we're taking a shortcut because it's just quickly, these are bad guy villains. We tell you what they did and they're in jail. Here we go. Avengers in 2012 had the other movies. So it does feel like, yeah, you could have seen some of their adventures with these movies. I don't think it's needed, or these characters. It's not needed for Bloodsport or anything like that, or King Shark, but it's kind of dropping in that world, gives you a little backstory, and you're off to the races. But Ratcatcher and King Shark are definitely the heart of the film. And King Shark, man, I had a feeling, and most people were pretty excited for King Shark, but they knocked it out of the park, and it was the one that gripped me the most because there's just these moments, and they do this in the finale, which I'm kind of talking about. But Ratcatcher had that moment with her dad, and we've seen the trailers, but when she's crying, she's holding up like this rat device, and she's just feeling like she's making her father proud and stuff. It just was a great moment. That actress sold it well. This happens throughout the film, but Lonely King Shark, I was not prepared for. I was prepared for, comedic hijinks like hand. I was prepared for the unpredictable. At one point he does try to eat Ratcatcher in the middle of her sleeping, everything like that, because he's hungry and wants a mom. That I could have predicted. But the moment where he does go to eat her, and then she wakes up, there's a running joke where she's she's like very sleepy, and they keep John Cena will just be like, millennials. He'll just throw these, he keeps throwing these lines at her, and it's great. Like he just so like despises like this younger youth and doesn't feel like they get it and stuff like that. But they stop King Shark from eating her, and then she sits him down. They have a conversation about it, and she goes, well, would you eat your friends? And then I think I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty much close to no friends. And that was something about that was just heartbreaking. And I think that's where, again, I'm going to compare. I don't care. But other than a few things in the original, like one or two, this did a better job of these people are villains, but they are the misunderstood weirdos. And you can see that as far as a few things may happen in your life and you end up in the Suicide Squad, like if you're a super powered person, right? Harley, that was established in the other movies, big criminal. Ratcatcher was just trying to make her way across. She has her father's tech, and that's like a big problem. And they kind of assume like call her for robbing a bank or something like that, but it's nothing too big. Polka Dot Man, which we'll get into, is like he was the victim of his mother experimenting on him, And King Shark, it just we don't know his full story, but it's like this is a dude that he has no friends, and like maybe he just needs somebody to guide him the way, and he wouldn't have been a villain. But I'm sure when people look at him, they go, oh, "Look, it's a talking massive shark. Get away from me, you freak!" And I think he did a better job of that as far as the original, where it just felt like, oh, we're a bunch of villains that are together, and that's fine. You can do that movie, but then they would try to make the fucking Diablo stuff like really personal, or like there's one scene in here. And again, I'm going to compare the scene that people talk about being maybe one of the best scenes in Suicide Squad is the bar scene, right? Where it's just them talking with their problems. I thought that was good, but it never reached that fully. Like this could have been great. This movie has multiples of that, whether it's them at a bar again here where they're just bonding, but like one of them when they're on the train riding. I think there's multiple scenes like that where the characters feel more fleshed out, real, better written, better edited, and it just works. And King Shark, man, he is again the heart of the film. He's the sad heart of the film where she says, "You have no friends," and she goes, "Well, you know, I'll be your friend so you can't eat me. And then they shake hands. And I don't know if this is on purpose, but they shake hands for like a long period of time where it feels like, oh, he might try to take another bite at her. But the whole movie, there's just moments where he, and near the end of the movie, he goes into, they're going to Jotunheim. This is where Starl's kept. Um, he goes there and there's like a fish, like a why am I forgetting? Like it's a fish tank, but it's like oh my god, what do they call where you keep fishes? A marina, something like that. Oh man, I'll look it up after. I'm having a brain fart. But anyways, aquarium. Thank you, Travis. An aquarium, and he sees all these other fishes. Now it's fun because the twist is these fishes are like fucking evil piranha things. Another CGI thing that did not work anytime they're in the world. Like, oh, this is just a CG thing in water. This is a CG thing on Harley Quinn. But either way, it worked for the joke as far as these things are just gonna tear you apart. Nothing breaks King Shark's skin in this movie except for these fishes. So pretty impressive. Maybe Star did a little damage, but those fishes messing them up, that shows okay, you don't want to mess with their these guys and their teeth and their chompers. But he walks past this aquarium and sees them, and he goes and walks up and looks at them. And you don't know because like, oh, is he getting in there? Does this food for him? But these fish slowly start to come up and they follow him and whatnot. And he just goes, friends, and he starts running around. And it's oh man, it's it's just so touching. And throughout the whole movie, you know, he's talking about friendship, or there's just moments where everyone gets to go in the bar and have a good time, and he's just in the truck by himself, like listening to this music. And it was sad. And you kind of go, this is why this guy would be a criminal, because like there's no one to support him at all. And like people just call him dumb. Like he at one point at the beginning, I think they've shown this trailer, but he's reading a book and it's back or upside down. Everyone kind of calls him out for it, makes fun of him for it. It's just like he's just trying to like fit in and be one of the people. But one, he's hungry, but two, it's just no one gives him the time of day. So the back and forth between that, Ratcatcher, the stuff with her dad, the stuff even minorly with Idris Elba, there's some stuff they really uh, like. I guess there's not though. I was gonna say there's some stuff they highlight more than others, but I feel like not really. I feel like everyone, for a good and bad portion of the movie, gets the same type of highlights. And I think some characters maybe needed a little bit more so you could fully invest them. Like it's very paper thin stuff. James Gunn, the good thing is it's his writing, his dialogue, his style, which brings it up, right? But Idris Elba, you know, is trying to help his daughter, and his daughter wants a role model, so he becomes a hero, right? King Shark wants friends. And I put out these scenes, but then there's really like 3 to 4 scenes of each of these arcs. Polka Dot Man, he explains that he was experimented on by his mom when he has like an interdimensional virus. When he doesn't shoot out these polka dots, it like starts infecting his body, which was great. The first time you see him, these polka dots are like bulging through his body. Some really cool body horror stuff. But again, it's touched upon a few times. He has some stuff with his mom, which we'll get into. Peacemaker, same thing. Like he'll do anything for peace. Any man, woman, or child, he'll kill them. He'll do all these kind of outlandish things. And all these characters get like, here's what their motivation / development is going to be. And that happens. Nothing that in depth. Harley really didn't. Harley feels like she's there to put on a show and be comedic relief, which she is. Um, you've seen she has grown as a character, which I do like, but it's again very minor in my opinion. They go to do the mission. Her team fails. Her and Rick Flag survive. Rick Flag gets taken to a camp, which we'll talk about later. She gets taken to one, like the main bad guy's first, like head honcho quarters, and he's just explaining. I can't remember the guy. He's just a generic president of this country, and he's just explaining that, you know, he's a single guy. He's kind of a womanizer, but there's people, they want him to marry somebody, and they've kind of pegged it to be Harley Quinn because she represents like kind of a rebelling against America. And he brings her in and they get a wedding dress. So I liked the can of making sure of why she had that dress. I do. It sucks so that everybody, because I guess I don't agree exactly, because I think the original like Harley Quinn outfit is still my favorite. But people are like, this is the best design of Harley Quinn. That one she has on the beach. She's in that design for maybe 10 minutes, and the rest of me, she's in the in the dress. So it's just so funny. Everyone's been prompting that look up. It's like, oh yeah, it's not really in the movie. But anyways, that's how she gets the dresses. He's gonna marry this woman, right? And they have this day together. Very fun, like montage of them like having a day in the birds, stuff like that. And then he explains, like, oh, I didn't actually want to marry you, just the people voted that. But once I met you, you know, I found you irresistible. There's a sex scene. So Harley Quinn, you know, probably has happened before, but in canon now, officially having sex with someone other than Joker. So that's good. I was wondering what was going to happen there, but there's nothing too raunchy. It's just kind of some rolling around and whatnot. But they are going to get married. and he's kind of telling her his evil plan and all the things he'll do and stuff, and she shoots him because he mentions a few bad things but mentions hurting kids. This is where the growth is, because then you could see, even if you took out Birds of Prey, but I feel like Birds of Prey, it still works in this, where she had to get away from the Joker, and it shows before she was with this murdering psychopath, and now she says if she has a boyfriend, a potential boyfriend, but there's a red flag, to murder him instantly. Not to run away, because she's even like, I could break it off with you, but what will happen is you'll yell and I yell, and then you'll follow me, and then you'll ruin my life. You'll do this, you'll do this. You'll tell me the music I don't like, or you'll tell me the music I like isn't music. That was a great line. And there was another line where I don't know if it was them trying to canonize some stuff with Birds of Prey and Joker. In my opinion, I'm gonna headcanon that because it's just more fun. But she's like, "Oh, or you'll kill my dogs." And to me, I kind of took that as, oh, in between Birds of Prey and this, maybe Bruce, her dog there, the hyena, maybe Joker killed that, and there's been some interactions. Could have been in the past, but still, I like the headcanon that because those dogs aren't around right now, right? So you could see even from Suicide Squad, she's with this murder psychopath who in that movie says she murdered a child in Robin. This movie, she'll murder anyone that's still thinking about hurting kids. So it shows that maybe she's still villainous, breaking the law, but she's not doing those terrible, unforgivable crimes. Now, she's already done them, so she should still be in prison. She's still a terrible person, Harley Quinn. I always want to remind people she's a terrible, terrible person, but maybe she's turned the corner and wants to be a hero. So other than that, though, Harley, she's a lot of comedic jokes, but there's not much development there. And that's with most characters, where there's a few scenes there, a few lines of dialogue where it's like they have officially developed and changed, but it's not like a big deep dive, and that's where I think I give it a little, Wonder Woman still a little bit of edge, because I like seeing Diana's story, even though that was the reverse, where it started high and got, lower and lower. This started low and got higher and higher, but I digress. So we're gonna get into more casts, more of the plot lines. Gonna talk about Polka Dot Man here soon and stuff like that. We got a very fun joke that they did there. So I will be right back after this next ad break. And we're back. So yeah, Polka Dot Man, I talked about earlier, big kind of standout for me. I was a big fan of this casting because David Dastmalchian, I think that's how you say his name, David Dastmalchian. i- It's just one of those kind of stories you root for. He's in my favorite movie all the time, The Dark Knight. It's just like a psycho guard that Joker kidnaps, right? He's in that. He's in Ant-Man. He's a bunch of the CW shows. He's in Gotham. He voices Calendar Man. So it was very fitting that he had a scene with Calendar Man in that movie. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And then he has Dune coming up. So he's just one of those kind of classic Hollywood character actors where it's like, I know that guy. I've seen him budge. And I'm happy because I thought he might get a little stuff in here, but I thought he might just be primarily comedic relief. And he really, he was at sometimes, but he had emotion. I love the story. His mom was trying to make him superheroes, him and his siblings, and that's how he got sick and all this stuff. So he had some actual lines and dialogue and acting going on. He was in the movie quite a bit. So yeah, he died, and that was disappointing, but I got more with him than what I was expecting. So that was a complete positive there. The joke that There's a few jokes that did get me, but the joke that got me probably the most was this reoccurring mom joke. So he tells the story, right? Of, like I said, mom's experimenting on him and the siblings, trying to make them superheroes. This is in the middle of the movie, and I think it's like Rick Flag or Bloodsport. Bloodsport, I gotta say this now before I forget. I had seen just a picture of him the other day, so I was prepped for this, but seeing it live action, man, his suit was great. All his weapons were great. We'll get in that. I don't have much to say about Bloodsport other than Idris Elba's good as always, and it's a very similar storyline to Ditch on the first one. He's doing it for his daughter. He's very much the rugged, tugged, gonna get the job done. No fucks given. Let's do this kind of badass, right? He's Idris Elba. We all like Idris Elba. And the guns and look, really, really cool. But either way, so it's either Rick Flag or Idris Elba that asks, like, oh, and what happened to your mother? Where is she? and Polka Dot Man says everywhere. And this is the setup joke. And this is where I get there's probably some stuff like other James Gunn movies where if the joke doesn't work for you, if it keeps coming back and coming back, like I think Brent brought up in Garden Stewie, he doesn't like the nipples joke, and I love that. So for me, I love this as far as he says everywhere. We cut to the Suicide Squad, and it's his mom playing all the versions of the Suicide Squad, whatever actress they cast, no one famous, but just like there's a King Shark version of his mom, there's a Harley version of his mom, all this stuff. So throughout the movie, he will he will just see image of his mom and other people as his mom. And he even said, like, at one point, he's like, yeah, I killed all these people because I pretended they were my mom. So clearly there's a lot of ill will there. Near the final act, Bloodsport kind of has his Captain America movie where he's directing everybody. He's like, Harley, you go high. King Shark, you rush. Polka Dot Man, you're going to stand on the side. And just, he's like, you know what that is? You see that? And he's like, what? That's your mother. And then they take the actress that plays his mom and makes her into a kaiju like Godzilla size. It was wild stuff that I could see people thinking that was dumb, but I loved it. It's a gag that just worked for me. Every time they flash to it in multiple times in the movie, it did the job. The other one that was really good but creepy is that when they're at the bar and he's dancing and he's just dancing with a bunch of versions of his mom. And then I love the line delivered later on of Peacemaker calling him like the Norman Bates motherfucker. So Desmoshin did great. The joke was great. Really liked that character. And again, he wasn't just comedic relief. He had some, again, all these characters have maybe a little less than I would want, but they still have emotional beats. So at the end of the day, would I rather take, it's tough. Because would I rather take 3 characters with like a little bit more motivate, like a little bit more development, or it spread throughout these characters? I think I would want it spread. Because if I want 1 to 2, 3 to 4 characters get like deep development, then you got to cut a lot more characters. And I just don't think if you're coming to me, Trav, saying no matter what, we're gonna have 7 to 9 Suicide Squad members, what would you rather have? I think each character getting a moment and sub development is good, and not just being the complete like comedic value and stuff like that. So Polka Dot Man, I think they did a great job with. Again, he felt like a layered character for what we got with him. Peacemaker, loved Peacemaker in this. As I was saying, non-spoilers, it's John Cena's best dramatic acting. Bumblebee, he was in a completely different movie. That didn't work. F9's a cheesy action movie, so don't get it there. I've always said he should just stick to comedies. The good thing with this role is it's primarily comedic, but when he takes that turn at the end, is he giving best actor Golden Geeks level dramatic acting? No, but I would probably still fight for him in supporting. When we get to supporting Golden Geeks, as of right now, I'd have to look at the nominees. If people don't know, that's our kind of Oscars. I think that I would fight for him in supporting actor right now, as of August 2021, not 2. That's next year. But when this shift comes, and that's probably my favorite part of the movie, is when the 2 teams are together and they split and they're going to go on their mission too. And Peter Capaldi, who I've literally maybe seen in one thing, couldn't tell you, don't watch Doctor Who, was great as a thinker. I was disappointed that he got killed, but at the same time, the thinker in this movie was kind of a piece of shit. So I was like, yeah, you kept Starro, in you kept them, locked up, experimented on him. Like when he gets caught, he's like, I can be a better person, I can change, I can do all this, I can adapt. And then Starro just like, he rips half of his body and then he throws the other half into a wall and just explodes. And as Chris Tucker says in Rush Hour 2, he ain't making it to the third one, and the thinker is not. But I really like Peter Capaldi in that kind of minor role. But in that aspect, when the team breaks up, that's when it gets the most serious, and I really enjoy that because there's still some comedic beats, but you get Peter Capaldi revealing, it gets weird and dark, but revealing that America, and there's definitely some political vibes, and I know some people are like, oh, it's a political movie. They're very minor, and as most people point out, lots of comic book movies have dealt with political stuff. So it was pretty much just showing that it's America's fault that we got in this situation, but they don't want to take the blame for it. Very funny, not like real life at all. Wink. At that point, you're getting tons of stuff revealed that America was behind this all or started this operation. They're experimenting on regular innocent people. So when they go downstairs, it's like a factory filled with zombies with the Starros like around them, and it's some creepy stuff. They have this side lab where people's ribs are ripped off. They have this Starro being ripped from someone's face. It's creepy. It's like it's not so much as shocking, just like, oh, like you get bad vibes. Peter Capaldi gets a little more serious. You get Peacemaker starting to do the turn, because I always love when movies do this. They did this in Winter Soldier, as far as I think that I could think of recently that I just watched, because I rewatched some of the MCU stuff. When they do that mission in Winter Soldier, Captain America's do one thing, but Black Widow is secretly there to do another. That's what Peacemaker's for. And it makes sense, because that's what I love, that throughout the movie, again, he could have just been a joke. I even thought it would be that joke, as far as he's going to do outlandish shit, because it is this, like, he'll do anything for peace, even if he has to kill for it, right? So obviously already it's like, well, this is very hypocritical. But in his line of thing, you're like, okay, he's gonna fuck up people to keep the peace. He does that for a while, but then I saw the starts to come out. I was like, is that just like a gimmick? Is that just so you can cause harm and hurt people, but say it's for peace and you really just want to do this? So there's like like a comedians, they're very different characters, but a slant to it in the degree where it's like he's a good guy, but man, we don't trust him, and man, he's a little off kilter. And that's why I love that the reveal is there's also a data drive there. The mission is not, it's kind of like what they did with the first Suicide Squad, where the mission was actually just to get a Waller out of there. That was very convoluted. This, not so much. The mission is they got to get this data disk or whatever, and they're going to get it, bring it back, destroy it. Why they don't just shoot it? Why Peacemaker just doesn't shoot it? I don't know. Maybe they had to fully swipe it. Maybe they wanted to see what else was on there. I don't know. You just gotta not ask any questions. To be like, okay, he really needs to bring this disc back. But when Rick Flag finds out about it, because he's Mr. Government, right? The first one, this one, I think Joel Kinnaman does a really good job. Joel Kinnaman, I'm not gonna say he's the most underrated actor. Like, man, he should be in all these big roles and winning awards, but he does not get the credit he deserves. Like, especially in that first one, I felt bad because he had a lot of bad lines. Like, this is Katana. She is a sword that will take your like. Really bad. And I don't think it's him. I think it's editing and also just like some of that dialogue. I don't even think the great Christian Bale could make work. Maybe he and Adam Driver are like the only ones, but after that, very tough. So I've seen him before, and it sucks because like Suicide Squad, RoboCop, I feel like there's one more big movie where it's like anytime he's in these big movies, it's whether it's a performance thing from him and he doesn't bring it that time, or it's a scripting thing, which that's in my opinion, it has been a script or something that's not that good. He's in it, and I think people have done this idea like, oh, Joel Kinnaman, he's not that good. It's like, oh no, he is. Like, watch Altered Carbon, just the first season. Second season's fine, but the first season is legit. The Killing, he's great in that. House of Cards, he's phenomenal. And so it's just like he's done so many great performances, and this was really good. And I love the kind of, he was a bit more friendlier. The first movie, he's just an ass who boss these people around. But like, I really kind of felt heartfelt as far as, yeah, James Gunn said you don't need to watch the first one to see the sequel by itself. But to me, I think they propose it this way, and at least the headcanon I do. When Harley Quinn does go to that drug lord that wants to marry her, he finds out about it and goes, before we go back on our mission, we got to save Harley. Now, I talk about some non-spoilers. The transitions are great because at one point it's like in smoke and fire. It's like Operation Jotunheim, and then it gets bumped away. And it's like Operation Harley. Throughout, they are using different effects. They at one point are like at a junkyard, and it spells out Jotunheim. They do when they get into this big like part I'm talking about, they go down an elevator, they hit a button, and the button says "Dirty Little Secrets." Rick Flag literally says, "I'm covering up for their dirty little secrets," stuff like that. So those were really fun. But there's a point where he has to go back for her, and then like, yeah, they hug, and it feels a little awkward for him. But it feels like a very much big brother, little sister vibe, as far as, yeah, we're in the shit, and this is maybe the worst job ever, but we're in it together. And you're one of the last OG people around with me. And there's definitely, I feel like even with the little lack of writing, the little we got with them together, Joel Kinnaman sold that there was a connection there between him and Harley. And like I said, not a love connection, just like, you've been through war, and I'm gonna, if I'm going through this, you're going through this. And unfortunately, it sucks that he dies. That's the one where I feel like you could have kept him alive. It might set some good stuff up for Peacemaker TV show because they had a really good dynamic the whole movie. But what happens in this fight is, so that stuff all gets revealed, and Kinnaman's character, who is a bit more of like a baby face good guy now, feels like he's been lied to, and it's just kind of that almost Captain America Winter Soldier moment again, where it's like, what am I fighting for, really? So he's going to take this disc and upload all the information to news, bloggers, website, everything like that, and then you get the "I can't let you do that, Rick," or Flag, whatever it is. And it's Peacemaker. Peacemaker was given the mission. And this is where it shows, and this is where Amanda Waller, who we'll talk about, is, I really like this as a character development. Rick Flag was always the go-to guy. Rick Flag was the guy that she, at least in the first movie, and I feel like even the beginning of this movie, gives the mission, says, this is what's going to happen. You have to do it, right? Even though she played him a little in the first movie with June Moon, who we get no mention of, still it felt like he was the go-to guy that still knew more than everybody else for the most part. And this, it shows that she either questions that, or he's not right for the role, or she just views Peacemaker as a better version of him because he gets the information to just destroy the discs or whatever, bring them back to base so they can't be seen by anybody. And it makes sense for his character because he's Peacemaker. He literally says that when he's like, I'll keep peace at all costs. And it's because he's like, this information shows that we did all this bad stuff. Like, we started this operation, we hurt these innocent people. We gotta kind of come out, like, admit to that, and like, let the roosters come home to roost, or whatever. What is it, to cook, whatever the fuck it is, to raw? I don't know, it's some sort of saying, but you need to cop up. You need to say, hey, this is what we did and it's our fault. But as Peacemaker points out, he goes, that would create, like, wars among countries and distrust, and that could just be a whole ball of wax that we got to deal with. And it's very much, again, kind of like a Watchmen situation where it's like, okay, you could let these millions of people die and lie about it, but potentially the world's going to get back to normal and people won't be fighting as much because they'll worry that there's a big alien up there, right? Or a big Dr. Manhattan. Or we tell everybody and all those people died for nothing and we keep fighting. And now there's a whole question of morality of, like, what you would do and what's right. But Peacemaker's on that side of kind of like, well, it might be a lie, but the lie is going to save people. And that's where he gets the most dramatic. And I really love their fight. And I love the back and forth. Like, that's when I love this film the most, was that 20 minutes right before, like, Starro busts out, because you got Ratcatcher doing some things to face off with Peacemaker later. You got King Shark with the aquarium moment. You got Milton, which was such a good joke, because they didn't show it in the trailers or posters, but when they have that stuff with the rain and they got the whole lineup of the squad. And Milton was on the side. He said, my fiance, like, they even brought this fucking guy along. And I was like, what is this guy here for? Like, it doesn't make much sense. And then he gets killed off. And they literally had that conversation. Like, why did he even come with us? He's just a guy. Like, he can't do anything. Like, really funny stuff. And then Harley Quinn's like, who's Milton? And then that's what I like about Polka Dot Man. He's like, he's been with us the entire operation. Like, he's helped us all along the way, every step. And she's like, yeah, I never met a Milton in my life. And they have this whole conversation. Then when she sees that, but she's like, oh, right, Milton. Yeah. And they call back to it later by her calling Bloodsport Milton. And they, nope, that's not, like, oh no. And she's like, we just talked about it for 3 hours. Really good stuff there. But anyways, that's when all that stuff's happening. They're on a separate mission. They do this great moment where Peacemaker has Ratcatcher dead to rights, and they do 8 minutes later. This movie, and that's why I compare it to Reservoir Dogs, as far as, again, much more. To me, it's the bank heist and the mission in this are kind of the same until Starro pops up. Once Starro pops, like, okay, it's about the mission, about saving the day, but it's very much in the background. It's just about these character dynamics and how they're going to get out of the situation or survive, much like Reservoir Dogs, right? And it plays with time in that way. It's like non-chronological. We show you a few things, then 8 minutes earlier, we show you, like, the whole beginning of the movie is on that island, and then we jump back to, I think it's like a week later, something like that, how Idris Elba got there, how they recruited this sort of team. So really liked playing with the time. Like I said, very Reservoir Dogs-ish. I think that was very enjoyable because it kept you as like a TV show, like, on the edge of your seat, like a cliffhanger. When Peacemaker had that gun to Ratcatcher, and then it says 8 minutes later, I knew it was going to be the setup of, okay, this is how she gets saved. But it was still great to watch because you're feeling in all this stuff. And same thing, even though we don't see Pete Davidson much and Weasel, it's like, oh, we got a little more of them because we flash back. So kudos to whoever had that idea, whether it was James Gunn himself or someone on the team, as far as the editing the non-chronological way, really worked and did a lot of favors for this movie. So really like that. But they have this big fight, like I said, in the middle of the third act. This is where all my favorite stuff's going on, because there's some jokes, but some more serious stuff. But they had this fight about, like what I was talking about America and lies and stuff like that. And literally, this building comes down, they get separated. John Cena has this thing off, and I love the line where he's just like, you are an American hero. Do not make me do this. And it doesn't feel like an action movie where it's just like, I have this briefcase and I don't want to kill you, but I will if I have to. So don't make me do this. It didn't feel like a threat. Like, usually in movies, when people say it's a threat, it's like, don't make me do this because I can easily kill you. John Cena's Peacemaker feels like he has like a genuine respect for Rick Flag. Like, he calls him a hero, I think, a few times, and he talks about like him in a respectful way. And when he just says like, don't make me do this, it looks like he's pained. He looks like he does not want to kill Rick Flag because he kind of looks at him as like an equal, right? So later on, when they get in the fight, the buildings break and they're fighting for the disk drive. There's one shot where it's like a Peacemaker's helmet and they're fighting in it because it's like reflective. Went on a little long. I don't think it was that cool of a shot. It was just felt a little awkward after a while. But at some point, they're fighting and they kind of fake you out twice with Rick Flag's death because they show him in the helmet and he's pulling something from his chest, like, or his stomach. I'm like, oh, this is it. This is how he dies. And Peacemaker's going to walk away, or Peacemaker's going to see him die and be like, man, I made a mistake. That didn't happen. So I thought, oh, Rick Flag might make it. No. Later on, when I can't remember how the situation goes. He hits the disc drive and he knocks the helmet off. And I think he's a baseball bat and he's like choking, like he's hitting him in the head and he's choking. Pronouns, pal. Rick Flag is choking Peacemaker with his baseball bat, and then kind of just saying like just quit, like almost. I think he has some sort of line like just let me have the disc drive, like let's do something for once. Good. I'm paraphrasing. It's not as simple as that, and it looks like it's kind of gotten in a situation where Flay's gonna maybe have to knock him unconscious or at least kill him because he's not gonna stop, and he doesn't because he reaches down and he gets like a bathroom tile broken part and he goes and he puts it against his chest and then he hits it, and you get like a Mortal Kombat video game where you see it literally go through his chest and puncture heart and it splits apart. um it's like it sucked in a good way because like, oh, Rick Flag, and it goes out in such a way because while he's dying, Peacemaker looks very distraught, like very much like it was this a mistake. And when this is why I felt like Comedian, the way Comedian dies, just one big joke. He says, Peacemaker, huh? What a joke. And then he collapses. And you just see this look of like, man, is he right? Am I completely wrong? Am I doing the wrong thing? Is this even worth it? But before he gets to like really think about that, Ratcatcher is there. She's been crawling away and the disc drive's right in front of her and she takes it and runs. So it's like he could have been, it reminds me a lot of Loki in Avengers 2012 where Thor and him are fighting and he's like, look at this madness, stop, look at this madness. And Loki looks and almost looks like he's tearing up because he realized like this is not what I wanted. And as we've learned from the movies and the show, it's like, no, he's not that evil of a guy. But Loki gets a quick moment because Thor leaves himself open to stab him, says sentiment, and runs away. But it's like if he would have been sat down for another minute to watch all this, could he have turned? And I feel like Peacemaker's the same way that maybe if there's a time where he got to sit with those emotions a little bit, he could have been like, man, maybe your flag was right. Maybe we are doing the wrong thing. But he's on a mission. He's like the Terminator in this last little bit. And that's why I was like, could he make a good Terminator? I don't know. Arnold did it, but he's like the Terminator where he sees Ratcatcher, she catches this, and he just moves right away. And the rest of the thing is just like he's chasing her down. He looks like he's very upset when he's about to shoot her. He says, sorry, kid. And then Idris Elba has a scene that was weird as far as the other mission goes. I like that Milton gets shot from some rando guys, and then Harley Quinn and Bloodsport, King Shark, and then Polka Dot Man, they're kind of talking about their plan. They have these makeshift bombs that they're gonna blow up. It's part of some sort of plan. We never get to see it because it goes wrong. The bad guy security runs up. Polka Dot shows Polka Dot, and Harley Quinn's like, no, and it like ignites the bombs and blows everything up. So that's why there's kind of chaos going around. And there's this one moment where they're by some like a rubble building part, and it seems pretty high in my opinion. I don't know much about Bloodsport. I don't know if he is not supernatural, but like super strength and stuff like that. To me, I think I've heard he's just a guy, right? So again, that's what I'm basing it off of. They're in this rebel part where the building's coming apart and he falls to the ground. It looked like a pretty big fall, in my opinion. Maybe he could survive, but I thought he'd be at least injured. But he lands like superhero pose, like arms spread out, legs strong, and then that starts to break, and then it breaks to another piece of cement, and that catches him. And that breaks another piece of cement. So it's like when he gets down to Peacemaker to interrupt this kill, because you've seen the trailers. If not, they establish Ratcatcher and Bloodsport is having some sort of a connection. They mentioned that what is it? He is afraid of rats and obviously Ratcatcher, so there's some fun back and forth there. But then when you reveal the story as far as his dad was abusive and locked him in a cage, it's like, yeah, and the cage had rats in there. It's like, yeah, I could see you creating a phobia of that. But then the scene is literally like he's going from platform breaking. It's like, okay, I don't know if this could be possible for a regular person. Again, it's a Suicide Squad. So yeah, Clays and Chat says he's a regular person. So there you go. I thought so, but it's a Suicide Squad, so you write off, but you kind of go, okay, what is the moveset here? But it got us to a fun point where they shoot bolts because they mentioned earlier about bolt sides. The whole movie, at first, I was worried they're very much doing the Hobbs and Shaw thing where it's The Rock and Jason Statham and they dislike each other and they're going to compete. I'd say in the first act, majority of it didn't work for me. It's right around when we got to the Freedom Fighters camp, which we'll talk about. That's when it started. Just near the end, it started working. Like even at the beginning when he shoots the middle finger and he does like the masturbation into your face thing, I was like, no, I don't think this is just not playing for me. It almost felt like a Hangover movie in the middle of Suicide Squad, where James Gunn had some raunchy out there radar humor, but there's a certain type about that. So they made a joke about the bullets, about his being smaller and John Cena's being able to wrap around his. And it's like, yeah, they do wrap around, but it was completely through. Shoots John Cena in the neck. Again, I could just talk about this now because we're talking about Peacemaker. that was the other end credit scene at the very end, as far as they go to the hospital. And I have a problem with the setup of the scene, but it's fine. I do wonder, it's a chicken egg scenario as far as what was shot first. Did they do the movie? And then James Gunn's always said that they HBO Max people, when they went to him, said, "Is there anything based off Suicide Squad that you could pitch into a show?" He said Peacemaker. So was the movie filmed and it still had that end credit tag, meaning Peacemaker was going to be alive for a potential sequel down the line, or was it filmed and then they put that in the scene? Because I'm pretty sure that the guy with the glasses that's going to be like his handler is in the show. So I hope after the movie we get that revealed, because in the movie there's nothing to show that Peacemaker survived. He got shot in the neck, and then I was like, okay, you could not easily survive that, but in a movie world you could survive that. And then he collapsed. So I was like, all right, that's interesting, but it didn't feel like a full death scene, so I didn't buy it yet. I thought maybe near the end it was gonna come out that he's still alive, but no, they said it for the end credits. So that was a setup there for his show that's happening, right? I think it's gonna be a mixture of prequel and sequel and stuff. That sounds good. I'm very interested in this show of like, how does John Cena carry it? Because I don't think he is a leading man per se. He works great in these ensembles, but not only do I think he's maybe not a leading man, but this character I feel like is best in small doses. Now, I would watch the shit out of it, but it reminds me, as far as Tropic Thunder, when they at one point they announced there's gonna be like a Les Grossman uh prequel or spinoff, and I was like, I love that character. I love Tom Cruise in that role. Could I watch a whole movie of that? I would try it, but I don't know. That might be a little grating. And I kind of felt the same way as far as Peacemaker. Can you pull off, what is it, 6, 8 episodes? Can you pull that off with this character that's such a douche? Now, majority of his stuff I laughed. I don't know if it's because it's just John Cena and I've grown up with him. I grow up with him my entire life. At one point, he was my favorite wrestler when I was like a kid back in 2004 and 3, word life, thugonomics, all that good deal. So I don't know if it's just that, but I think he has some good delivery. There's some fun lines of he comes out like just completely wearing just tighty whities, and Bloodsport calls him out on that. He's like, "Oh, that's just racist." But like, just when he walks out, and he definitely has a stuffer in there because it looks like he has two cocks the way it's pointed. But everybody's still in their full gear, and he just walks out in underwear and stuff like that. But he has some really good one-liners, some good back and forth, and he at one point shoots somebody, and Bloodsport's like, "Why would you show off?" He's like, "Well, you show off if it's cool." And then Hunter Zell like walks around, and like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He I liked him, but the whole time I was thinking, how can you make a solo show of him now? With this being looking like a sequel, I think he will question a lot of stuff, how he feels about himself, because it felt like Rick Flag saying, "Peacemaker, what a joke," and he falls down. To me, he might actually question, like, what is Peacemaker? How could I be better, and stuff like that. So I think near the very end of that character, there was a little path, but the whole time I was like, could this be a show? I don't know. It's gonna be tricky, but I do trust Gunn. I trust John Cena. I trust that staff, because if it's similar people working on the movie, I at least would probably enjoy the show. So I'll be there. We're gonna take our third ad break, and then we got a few more things to talk about. Quite a few things actually. So we'll be right back. And we're back. We've talked about Harley, we've talked about Polka Dot Man, we've talked about Rick Flag, we've talked about Bloodsport. His daughter, good, similar as far as, okay, it's a daughter where Amanda Waller is using her as leverage, but not as a loving relationship as Deadshot had. So I appreciated that. Let's see. Fanboy says, I think Peacemaker is recruiting for the next Suicide Squad movie. Um, Maybe. If you had to put a gun to my head, I would say no. I think it's gonna be a classic, very much like Punisher does in comic books a lot, but Punisher season 1, where he is dealing with a villain or an antagonist that is from his past. So you'll get lots of past flashbacks and stuff. I think it'll be pretty secluded. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but I think it's just going to be lots of flashbacks, flash forwards, and that's Peacemaker. But we'll probably learn a lot more about it after this, right? Because before they'd always be like, well, he might die. This could be a prequel. It's all right. I didn't believe it for a second. I think most people didn't, but if you did, then shit happens. So, anyways, I think I've talked about most of the main characters. Boomerang, yeah, he was gone. We all knew that was going to happen. He was barely in the marketing of this movie, and it sucks because Jai Courtney was actually really good, as far as I wasn't that invested in him as far as a character, but I think we all talked about us enjoying Captain Boomerang. So the fact that he's gone was like, that's tough to swallow. Amanda Waller, I really liked her in this because she was much like the first, but even more so, like times 10, just that no good bitch who just will not fuck around. And I love that. I loved how serious she was at the end when she's yelling like motherfucker at them and everything like that. I think it was really good. She kept threatening Bloodsport's kid and was like, oh, we're not really gonna do anything, right? And she's like, you don't even begin, like, you can't even begin to think about what I would do to get this done. So they doubled down multiple times she's a terrible person. What I didn't like at all, really, at least the payoff. So they get the data drive. Their goal now is just to come back. Starl's escaped, has destroyed the city, it's thrown out facehuggers everywhere. And they're like, oh, even Emmanuel was like, that could be good for America. Something else to blame, right? For all these problems. Bloodsport decides, no, I'm finally going to be a hero. Probably thinks back to his conversation with his daughter because in mid-fight, we see the daughter watching the news and be like, that's my dad. He's a hero. So, okay, full circle. Not the strongest, but it worked for me. She is going to blow all their heads off because they're all turned back to be heroes and everything like that. She's going to blow their heads off. And one of the other workers hits her with a golf club, knocks her unconscious, and they take over the mission. And then later on at the end of the movie, they are like all in the workroom, and Amanda Waller like looks over evil and goes back. I thought for sure we were going to get a tribute to the first Suicide Squad where that was going to happen. Sure, she knocks them out. She can't, so they can't blow up the squad's head. But then she fucks up or kills them. And Squad, I really love that moment where these people have seen too much. So boom, 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 boom. That's one of the few moments I really like in the first Suicide Squad. And like I said, boom, 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 all done, taken out. Right? Not exactly here. So it's strange because she just looks at them, and like I said, I expected, okay, she's gonna look at them, and then she's gonna pounce and do something bad. It doesn't happen. It just ends, and then the end credit is those two characters. The one guy that's in Peacemaker, and then the other person that I think is James Gunn's girlfriend or something like that. I think they've been partners for a while, and they're like, "Well, this is Amanda Waller's revenge. She's saddling us with Peacemaker," and I just go like, from even the Amanda Waller of the first movie, but even this one, as far as the stakes of easily threatening a child and tripling down on it, the fact that the punishment for these people is, yeah, you can just go watch Peacemaker. I didn't buy that. I thought that was very un-Amanda Wallerish, and I thought that maybe there was some stuff cut that we didn't get to see, and if there wasn't, then that was just a poor writing choice because it felt unfinished. It felt like something was missing there with Waller and her ending. It felt anticlimactic, which you don't want. I think you easily could have killed majority of these people. Maybe they escaped, and that's why they're in the John Cena show. But we didn't get that. As always, Viola Davis comes there to play, and she did. So great job there. Two things I want to mention before I forget them, because I think I have them in my notes, but just so I don't forget. Majority of Harley's humor always worked for me. Probably the last time it worked for was in the first one, but even then it worked because I think Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, but Margot Robbie in general is an actress that can elevate whatever material she's working with. So that's why the line. So she kills that guy like we were talking about earlier, right? She kills the guy that was going to marry her because he hurts kids and stuff like that. Again, showing her growth. She gets locked up, and then there's a new general now who's the president just by default. He burns the birds, that motherfucker. What a terrible guy. But him and some other guy are torturing Harley Quinn. And again, is it like grade school humor and stuff like that? It is, but sometimes they just get you. And for me, it was actually the delivery of the general that did it. So they're tasering her and everything like that. She's just singing, being crazy. Kind of some fun little tributes because she does a lot of like. At one point, she chokes with the guy with her legs, and she takes a key and does it with her feet to her arms, stuff like that. Kind of a reminiscence to the first Suicide Squad again when she's like doing some sort of yoga on the bars. But the guy's like, all right, so I know you have other American friends. They sent you the Americans. How many more Americans are with you? And she goes 69. And he like, it's all, she delivered it well, but it's all in this actor's fault when he's like, 69 American soldiers? How did you sneak it in? His delivery is so good, so deadpan, so serious. And the other guy has to film like, no, she's making a joke. And then Harley Quinn laughs. I laughed so much. Again, if you don't laugh, I get it. It's an easy joke, but it was the delivery from the actor. He just sold it so well. 69. So there was that. And then we get this very first big action set piece with our new squad, right? Team 2. And Rick Flag's been located. So Waller says, you got to go get him back. Because, like I said, it feels like she trusts him more than anybody, as revealed later. Not the case. Peacemaker's the one she trusts, at least with certain stuff. They go to this camp where he's taken hostage, and they have this great attack plan. It's all silent, and they just myrtleize these people. They just destroy them silently. There's one point where John Cena, there's a person walking, and he walks up to them, starts at their dick or their crotch, and just go boom, 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 stabs them all the way to the head. And it's like these people are dying in quick, brutal ways. And so they get up to Rick Flag. They know he's in this tent, probably in this tent, right? They whip it open. He's sitting there laughing, having a drink with I can't remember the character's name or the actress, having a drink. It's revealed later that's another confirmation. Her storyline was pointless. Her storyline was just to get revenge at the general because he killed her family or something like that. Very Quantum of Solace-ish, but luckily she's not a part of the whole venture. And even when they tied it in the end, I go, this movie didn't need us. This didn't need it at all. Like, did it get you anything that you wouldn't have got before? I don't think so. Like, I don't. You could still get to point A to point B. And it's practically the same. So other than you need this joke, but again, you could give her this joke and not have to set up the whole, oh, I'm gonna go and do my father, and then Rick Flags like, oh, when we're on this mission, security will be gone, forbidden. That would be a perfect time. It's like, all right, you can bring her back last 5 minutes. Doesn't mean I care that her mission was successful, but they go through this whole camp, this whole settlement, killing people. One guy gets electrocuted in a bathtub. We see some dick. A guy gets shot. Everything like that. Going bad for these people. They get a red flag. They pull it. They're laughing, having a drink, and they're like confused. They thought you were hostage and everything like that. He's like, no, I'm here at the Freedom Fighters. And the second they said Freedom Fighters, and they killed so many people very brutally, man, that was my probably biggest laugh of the movie. I laughed hysterically at that. And then when they're just like, but I don't understand because my men would have alerted me if you were coming. So how did you get up here? And I think it's John Cena plus where I'm just like, we didn't see any men. We didn't see nobody. We don't know what you're talking about. And then they do like a smash cut to them standing by a bunch of dead bodies. She agrees to still work with them because any enemy of that general's a friend of hers. But man, it was really funny. I really like that. I did not see that one coming at all, so that's why it worked. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I would say about I guess a few points as far as on the CGI, like the polka dots I brought up, those fish I brought up, Harley Quinn's dream sequence scenes. Now it's a dream sequence, so I give the pass. But when she's shooting people, you've seen the trailers. Flowers are around here. I give that one the pass because it feels like that's supposed to be cartoony, so it's fine. But everything else like that didn't really work for me. The CG, there was much other daydream stuff, but the CG at parts looked good, but didn't look out of this world. Like this feels like real. This feels like a David Jones or Gollum, like we just talked about in Green Knight review, right? So there's that. I'm trying to think. I think I've talked about all the characters I wanted to. Like I said, really liked Ratcatcher. We've talked about the post-credit scene. Let me check my notes just to make sure there's nothing I'm missing. But no, I think that's pretty much everything. Like I said, I love the Polka Dot Man's a mom recurring joke, lots of stuff sad about Rick Flag. Yeah, no, I think I've hit it all. I think, like I said, lots happen in this movie, but it's still basic to the point where it is a smaller scale. I was saying that non-spoilers, and I guess because the thing is, the second Starro takes over that city, because all they say is, I'm the ruler of the city. So maybe they would just stop there. Probably not. They'd want to be the ruler of the world. But I appreciated that, okay, at the end of the day, could it become a world-ending scenario? It very well could be. But what I like is it's not right away it's a world-ending scenario. And plus it was something different, not a sky beam, which by the time we got the Suicide Squad was enough. The death of Starro, man, that was quite fun. Like the team attacks and how Harley Quinn goes to stab it in the because Javelin dies and he gives her this and he's like, oh, you'll find the purpose to hold on to this and get and blah, blah. So it's something just to be like, and it's yours, or I think he stops with it and then it stops and she's looking like she's gonna cry really emotional. Then she quickly slaps him, but like, it's what? And so the whole movie, she's trying to figure out why she got this javelin and everything like that. And even at one point, I think she says she says something about God, and then Idris Elba goes something about Jesus as well. And she's like, yeah, him too. I'm waiting. There we go. She goes, I'm waiting on an answer from God to know what I'm supposed to do with this javelin. And then Bloodsport goes, Jesus Christ. And she goes, well, he would work as well. He would work as well. But I was expecting when she stabbed the eye to it stop, but she just goes right through the eye. You have rat catchers. The rats did not look good. Let's be honest. The one little rat that was her friend, that was fun. But the rest of the rats, they did not look good, which is fine. I can bypass that. But after Harley Quinn stabs the eye of Starro, they crawl in there and rip it apart. And if you didn't watch the movie, it was revealed that the American like astronauts found it in space, kind of kidnapped it, and then it dispersed more of itself, took them over, and they locked it down, but wanted to use it for something. What? Who knows? There's lots of research done. Obviously, some of it I think is that's the deal that they don't put it public, but they and Harley gets a moment to be sad about Flag, and Elvis gets a moment to be sad about everything. But no, there's something in he Flag too because it's his friend. But anyway, so they make this deal with Waller that he has the info. If he dies, it will go public, but you need to guarantee us like safety or not being in prison, stuff like that, which is going to be interesting the next few years because will they refer back to this in a Suicide Squad 3? Would they appear in anything else? Probably not, because it doesn't feel like the movies are doing anything collective, but would they be a unit? Because Birds of Prey, she's starting to take over Gotham. You can easily headcanon that they found her, they swiped her up and whatnot. Maybe they just ignored it in the movie. Who knows? That's kind of the way it happens sometimes, right? But yeah, brutal way for Starro to go out, and it was fun. I like the kaiju aspect as far as something we haven't really got. We got that a few times in Invincible just this year, but as far as mainstream comic movies, still relatively new to that. Yeah, I think I'm ready to score it. I think I will give this as of right now an 8.5, which was good because it was like a 7, a 7.5, then like 7.58, and then I go 8.5. I think that if I didn't if I didn't highlight how much I did enjoy it, it's just because I feel like it's a movie that you got to watch and you completely understand. It's easy to bring up some of the negative stuff, but the pacing, most of the comedy, majority of action, and the character interactions from start to finish deliver and then get better and better. So that's the best way of just saying like, yeah, I'm telling you things I like, but what I really like happens majority throughout the whole film. Like I said, I think the first act, maybe half the first act, it felt like it was missing something. Felt like, okay, this is just a better version of what we got in 2016, or yeah, 2016, which is fine. We all want better versions of something, but I was like, was this really needed? I don't know, but it was needed because he made a great movie. Yeah, yeah, I'll say great. I'll say great. I'll say very, very good. That's what I'll say because maybe great's a little tough. But yeah, I still put it below Wonder Woman. Maybe in the future it'll change because again, I do want to watch it again here soon. But yeah, that's kind of my 8.5, somewhere around there. I don't think it would go any higher because, like I said, to me at that point, it's like getting into like top 25 comic movies, and it's definitely not that. There's some, like I said, problems I had with it. There is some stuff at the beginning that I wasn't necessarily that into. But yeah, I think James Gunn, I won't say knocked it out of the park for me, but I think in general he knocked it out of the park as far as fans seem to really like it. Critics seem to really like it. Box office sounds like it's going to be low, but that's tough in COVID, right? So much is low and you can't base anything off of old numbers. So we'll see, but I'm glad it's out. I'm glad I saw it. I'll be happy to see whatever James Gunn also does with DC in the future because he says he's going to be doing more. So we'll see. So thank you very much for everyone that tuned in this review. I think they said it's not my longest solo review. It's definitely probably my biggest one. So if you like what I did here, I'll be reviewing all the movies in August. Free Guy, Don't Breathe, Reminiscence is so close. So if you like what I do here, and then in September, some people will be back with Shang-Chi and Venom 2, hopefully. None of those get delayed. But if we do, you'll have not the whole cast, but a lot of cast and crew back to have some fun. But yeah, this was lots of fun doing this. I had a really good time as far as talking about Suicide Squad and watching the movie. So thank you very much for tuning into this review. And I promise when you hear from me next, it'll not be boring.